Havana, January 1st, 1959. The 26 de Julio, the 26th of July movement, led by Fidel Castro, had turned out the tyrant Batista. To the Cuban people and to the admiring world, there could be no better way to start the new year.
23 days after Castro's victory, we received him in Caracas. He had just triumphed over a dictatorship, and therefore we welcomed his revolution. Castro was an impassioned man, but a civil war is no joke. We had hopes that he would allow the Cuban people to decide on their own future, to take their place in the sun, and to adapt their institutions to their desires.
The 1960. The Havana airport resounded to the excitement and confusion attendant to great occasions of state. The arriving celebrity, Anastas Mikoyan, first deputy premier of the Soviet Union. In the month that followed, Cuba and Russia signed economic and trade agreements. Henceforth, Cuban sugar would sweeten the cups of Russian tea drinkers. $100 million worth of credit would be extended. Soon after, Che Guevara, the new honorary citizen of Cuba, and Fidel's brother Raul went to communist Eastern Europe. Toasts were offered. So were arms. In this 1960 Havana May Day parade, the arms are Czech. Soon, they will be Soviet. From the Kremlin, Nikita Khrushchev pledged that the Soviet Union is raising its voice and extending a helpful hand to the people of Cuba. In the case of necessity, he threatened, Soviet artillerymen can support the Cuban people with rocket fire. But first there was further bloodletting to be done. The world had mixed emotions about such violent retribution, as convicted torturers and collaborators fell with a maximum of publicity and a minimum of due process of law. It was the 7th month in power of the Cuban Revolution. While the people waited for the first free general election in 20 years, as Fidel had promised, political orientation was carried out under the orders of Che Guevara, an Argentine with a Botticelli angel's face and a scholar of Marx. It was a fiction curiously tolerated by Castro. On the night of July 13th, Provisional President Manuel Urrutia, a liberal judge who had denounced Batista and had been forced into exile for his pains, went on national television. There he warned that communism is not concerned with the welfare of the people, that it constitutes a danger for the Cuban Revolution.
Él venía de un colegio donde no había practicado tanto o casi nada el básquetbol, sino más bien el soccer. Y en La Habana lo que valía era el básquet. Pues él empezó enseguida a querer practicar básquet y básquet y básquet. Y enseguida me dijo a mí, oiga padre, ¿no podría ponerme usted una luz en el flor de básquet sobre el aro para que cuando los demás se acuestan yo pueda de noche seguir practicando? Cuando Fidel Castro se graduó, yo escribí que era Fidel Castro es madera de héroe y la historia de su patria un día tendrá que hablar de él.
At the University of Havana, where Fidel arrived in 1945 to study law, the political atmosphere was so highly charged that it often turned to violence. Students fighting against corruption and injustice were targets of repression. Fidel entered the fray, not as a communist, but as a radical nationalist with a passion for social justice. On the 26th of July, 1953, Fidel led an attack on the Moncada garrison in Santiago de Cuba. This marked the beginning of the armed struggle against Batista.
Pensábamos tratar de provocar un levantamiento nacional para el derrocamiento de Batista. Caso de no lograrse el levantamiento nacional, o en el caso de que Batista pudiera reaccionar con fuerzas superiores y atacarnos aquí en Santiago de Cuba, la idea nuestra era con las armas del cuartel Moncada marchar a las montañas y librar la guerra irregular en las montañas.
The operation had hardly begun when a group of Fidel's followers was surprised by a military patrol. 2 of the 150 participants were women, Aide Santa Maria and Melba Hernandez. 61 were killed, only 6 in combat. The rest were tortured and murdered after their arrest. Both women survived.
Fue muy dura, porque después cuando resultamos prisioneros y nos llevaron para el cuartel y nos sentaron así en el piso, de allí iban sacando a los muchachos o devolviendo a los muchachos, como el caso de Gómez García, que nos los devolvieron brutalmente heridos, destrozados, sin dientes. Aquello era una cosa horrible. A mí no me gusta hablar de esto.
Fidel survived thanks to a caring black officer. Then began what would become the most famous trial in Cuban history.
Fidel, en su alegato, está terminando su alegato, da así en la mesa con las manos y dice: condenadme, no importa, la historia me absolverá. Eso es lo que dice Fidel. Todo el personal se queda a la expectativa, se quedan inmóviles. Y entonces él, de pie, vuelve a hacer así, dice: bueno, ya terminé. Al pasar por delante de mí, cuando ya se lo llevara, me dijo: ¿tomaste nota? Digo, sí.
Fidel and 29 of his comrades were imprisoned on the Isle of Pines. Fidel for 15 years. He defiantly named his political movement after the date of the Moncada attack, the 26th of July, and smuggled out a manifesto based on his trial defense, entitled "History Will Absolve Me."
Today, I have ordered that illegal refugees from Cuba will not be allowed to enter the United States.
For 28 years, any Cuban who reached American shores or was rescued in American waters could receive immediate U.S. residency. No more. During the summer of '94, Cubans in massive numbers took to the seas in homemade boats. Cuban leader Fidel Castro permitted it, watching part of his economic crisis transferred 90 miles north to South Florida.
This is not a manageable situation, not for Florida, not for Monroe County. We want to see a federal response.
So the rafters were detoured and detained at U.S. military bases at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and Panama. And to put the squeeze on Castro, direct U.S.-Cuban charter flights were banned, and the money Cubans in the United States could send home was cut in half. In September, Cuba agreed to stop the exodus, and the U.S. agreed to admit 20,000 Cubans a year. But the U.S. sanctions, still a sore spot, remain.